start, guys. Let's see how this works. Yeah, that's good enough. I think it's good enough. I have no idea what it's filming, but I mean what it's focused on. It should be
over there.
No, I got you guys. It should be good enough. All right.
As long as you can see my face, that's what really matters.
That's all that
The money
matters.
maker here.
Not the body. I'm probably not going to do it the whole time
It's
anyway.
my body.
Why don't you guys video it?
We just haven't gotten that far yet. We're just going to do the...
When is this going to be aired?
I'll post it tonight. Well, it's on Spotify, Google Play Music, iTunes.
Cheers.
Sure. Cheers.
Damn! That is really, really strong. I'm used to like blonde. Like the lightest one you have. It almost looks like piss.
9% alcohol.
Like piss if you were hydrating. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Have to lean in a little bit, maybe. I don't know. You're not quiet. You're not soft spoken.
I'm
so.
very far from it.
Thanks for joining us, though.
Thank you for having me.
Are we action?
We are.
Oh, we're
We've
going.
been recording.
She goes.
We're not fucking around.
We got barkers outside.
Yeah, we do. The dog
Barking for
barks.
people. No, barking for people to come in.
Yeah. Don't come in. We don't want you
That's
here.
how we met. I barked. That's what we call
She
it
did.
in New York. We bark.
And
People to buy tickets.
you were outside the collective in Kailua for the Birdbath show with Reese. My wife and I were walking by, and you were like, "You here for the comedy show?" No, no, you're here for the comedy show. Just drunk as we're like, okay, cool. Come on in.
Yeah. Once a hustler, always a hustler.
So vicariously, you're responsible for me being here now.
That's right.
You made me do this podcast.
I'm going to make you guys have babies and everything. Yeah.
Hey, I've got one on the way, so.
Oh, that's congratulations.
Yeah, thank
I've
you.
actually introduced so many people that have had kids. The world could either thank me or hate me. It's like I've had so many people being introduced. I've introduced them. I'm a matchmaker. This is my DNA. I'm Jewish. It's got to be.
There you go, right?
Gotta be in
Tell her to
there.
hook you up, man. Come on.
Matchmaker.
Oh, God.
Everybody's like, no, I don't want to end up married. This is
I just finally got a loan.
Okay. Well, you can marry a sugar mama.
Yeah.
There you go. Fund you a rich woman that lives down in Lanikai.
Yeah.
Right. I
Where
let's
would
see
you
her like
find
once a
one?
month.
Where would you find one? Believe it or not, they're out there looking just like everybody else. You know, doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. People are looking for people to connect.
They are, and
why not
luckily
go for the golden goose?
luckily mine brought me here with her, so
There you go.
didn't have to look for it. My wife's 6 months pregnant, so
That's so nice.
we have
Congrats.
one on the way. Thank you.
You know what you're having?
A boy,
Very nice.
and I'm pretty sure it's
And
mine.
now everybody else knows.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I had 3 kids that I know of. I don't.
Oh.
I have a couple that
Does that
snuck out.
It was funny because I said that as a woman.
You know, I think after a woman has like what is it, 19 and counting?
Right.
Like at that point, I think she could have them and not even know. Like,
No, yeah,
oh
you're
shit,
right.
there's number 21. Where
Actually,
did that
my
come
friend's
from?
grandmother had 11 kids or 13 kids,
Wow.
and didn't know she was pregnant. And then one day she gave birth in bed.
Jesus.
It just fell out.
11
Anyway.
kids by 13 different guys.
No, it's either 11 or 13. I'm not sure. Maybe 2 died. I don't know what the hell. And in those days, it were like litters.
Yeah, my grandmother was one of, I think, 12 kids. So.
Yeah. I'm one of 5.
5.
Which is why I'm probably a hustler today. Because we're all a year apart. And it was like,
Mm.
those
Very,
Twinkies
very
are mine.
competitive.
Maybe
Yeah.
get your hands off those Twinkies. And
You had
then
to fight to survive.
We'd hide shit, too. Like, we'd
Mhm.
hide... My brother would hide Monopoly money when we played. When we were playing. I'm like...
He's stashing it under the
Yeah, all of a
mattress.
sudden, under his ass, and then all of a sudden, he would have money.
Right.
He's the wealthiest in my family today, by the way. So now we see where this stems from.
Right.
Is he a congressman now?
No, no, just a
That would make a
salesman.
lot of sense.
Yeah. There's not one politician I believe in since Abraham Lincoln.
I believe they're all crooked. I mean, there's something I
Every
can
one of them.
believe in.
That's why I don't know why everyone's arguing. Oh, I don't like this guy. I'm like, well, how about the other guy?
Why do you like any of them?
They're all horrible. That's why I think it's so funny that people, and when people are like, "Oh, you support this," I'm like, first of all, I don't give money, and I didn't vote. Second of all, it doesn't matter what I say. I don't make the decisions. I promise they're not doing anything based on what I say on Facebook. That's why I think it's so funny. I've gotten already banned from doing comedy for somebody because of my beliefs. So it doesn't matter. Or not even my beliefs or anything I just say that doesn't agree with somebody else, which I find funny.
I agree. That's like,
So-
who was it that had Garth Brooks the other day had a Barry Sanders jersey on.
Yeah.
And people are like, how dare you support Bernie? And he's like, it's Barry Sanders, you fucktards.
Barry
What?
Sanders. Wow, they're like right onto it. You remember when Vince Vaughn was just shaking hands with Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
shook his
was
hand
it,
and he
right?
was the devil.
Blacklisted. Like,
Yeah.
that's it.
Same thing with Ellen DeGeneres. She shook hands with George W. Bush at a
Yeah, I
at
know.
a
I'm
sporting
glad
event,
she
and-
spoke out.
Yeah, and she was like, "What? I like
Yeah,
everybody."
yeah.
She
You know
was like,
what's
"I
so
don't have to
funny?
agree with somebody.
Exactly.
Just be nice. That's shitty."
Exactly. You know, could you imagine if somebody was shaking hands with Obama and everybody went crazy over it?
Oh
That
yeah,
would,
I mean,
that would look so bad.
well yeah, and anybody who bitched about it would then be a racist automatically.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely. But
yeah.
I wonder if anybody's a racist if they don't like Bernie. Because he's Jewish. Well, is he? Really?
Then,
Self-hating Jew.
yeah, he hates everybody. I think like anybody who's not
He's not
like
even
him.
make it through the first term anyway. The guy's collapsing. I mean, who are we kidding?
He's 912 years old.
Exactly.
Trump's actually older than he is.
No, he's younger.
Are you
73.
Sure?
Yeah.
He's only 73.
Yeah.
I thought he was 83.
Oh,
No,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he wouldn't have been walking it either.
With that physique, are you
No,
kidding me?
he's gonna top
He won't make it that far.
Anyway,
No, they're all crooked. And,
everybody,
Yeah.
every single one of them. So
you know
that's
what? I'm really disappointed because for the sake of comedy, I was hoping Joe Biden would get the
Oh.
Democratic nomination.
Well, I think every one of them are good for comedy. I really don't see any of them.
But
I mean,
it-
I
but-
happen to have a friend that in New York, he's a comedian. He is absolutely, by far, the best impersonator of Trump that I've ever seen. Like, even the things he would say, and then he makes it funnier. He makes it even funnier. His name is Bob DeBono. I totally recommend everybody look him up. He is hilarious. He's been on my shows. I produce shows in New York. I don't know.
What club do you?
If we're gonna get to
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
segue.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
Like
get
that
That's
little
what we're here
segue?
for.
No,
Yeah,
no,
this is all about you.
No, yeah, no, that's not why I did it. But anyway, yeah, I did produce. Now that we're talking about it.
Yeah,
But while we're on the subject,
Right. I've been, I actually was on Facebook, and the owner of Broadway grew up in Brooklyn also. I grew up in Brooklyn in the 70s, like hardcore Brooklyn, Italians against the Jews, you know, that kind of thing. Not everybody gets a trophy in Park Slope. No. Like real life Brooklyn, you know? But even then, I had some friends that, followed me on Facebook, and the owner of Broadway Comedy Club grew up in Brooklyn. He's older than I am, whatever, but he saw my hustle online. He knew I was moving back, and he's like, work for me. I see it. You're not a millennial. You're definitely hungry. You're from Brooklyn. You know your shit. You know how to hustle. You're not fearful of anyone, and I'm far from starstruck. So my shows basically have gotten to the point where, well, I'm running 4 open mics a week, so I meet a lot of comics like that, and I like to showcase. I was only going to do, separate shows like headliners. You know what those are? Where you just get like really good comics like Mark Norman and David Hell. Just put them on.
Yeah.
But I was killing myself getting people, even though they're comedy famous. They're not, they're not only selling tickets, like it's not selling out like that. So I still had to do a lot of that work, and it was exhausting. So it was like a bringer for me.
Yeah.
Like I was like, well, why am I doing this if I'm bringing people myself? It's getting exhausting. So what I did was, in the open mics, I would actually audition people and see their, what people were like, and tell them, make the announcement that I'm having shows, and here's my thing: I'm putting on shows with celebrity headliners, not 1, but 2 or 3. So you get to have a great show if you bring people. Now, the people that bring the most people, I'm only having a few new talents or rising stars instead of a whole show of new talent. Then there's nobody in there that's going to make the show lift.
Yeah.
There's no draw. And so what I have going are those celebrities that are carrying the show, bring the draw, and get the people to want to be on the show. So now they can tell their friends and family. Mark Norman is going to be on that show. Joe Masci, David Tell is going to be on my show. Who would you like to share a stage with? Then I have people saying things like, writing me messages, yeah, I'll be on your show. I'm like, that's great. How many people could you bring? They're like, oh, I don't do that. I don't bring people. I'm like, really? What marquee have you been on? Like, I don't, but we're all replaceable. There's 9,000 of us.
Who's heard of you?
There's 9,000 comics alone in New York City.
Yeah.
Forget the bar shows, the 8 million bar shows that they have. How about, the comedy clubs, there's like 11 of them. With multiple rooms. It's like, what do you think you're competing with? This is not even like it's not even a small community. Like in Hawaii, you can get away with getting paid. In New Jersey, you can get paid. There's smaller places. They have like a small group to choose from.
Yeah.
But in New York, you die tonight, we'll still laugh tomorrow. You know what I mean? There's nobody, we're all replaceable, and we have to leave with ego at the door and get asses in seats.
Yep.
Everything is a bringer show. Sebastian has to fill up Madison Square Garden. He just has a PR guy do it.
Yeah.
Everybody has to fill seats. I had to fill seats. I didn't have to bring you into that comedy show that night. I was getting paid regardless.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting on that stage regardless if I brought you in. But asses in seats, man. That's what we need. And it's good for everybody. When everybody wants to ask me, I want a can-do attitude, you know, as a producer, I'm going to book somebody that can have no attitude and gets me more people.
Yeah.
Even if they're slightly less talented than somebody else. Because they'll bring their A game to that show.
Yeah.
If they know they're sharing a stage and they have their friends and family watching, and then they have a video, and then everything, they're going to step up in the game, and I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
People are shit in, open mics, and then all of a sudden all of a sudden people are laughing. I'm like, holy shit, they sucked at open mic, but they're really getting to these people. Like, people love it. They're already drinking, they're already relaxed, they're there for a show, which is why I love comedy clubs as opposed to bar shows. Bar shows, people are talking. The other night I did Dragon, and I'm telling you,
I heard about that.
The bartender was doing most of the talking. I'm like, really loudly.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and I've seen that at comedy shows here. You know, certain venues here on the island are better than others.
Right, like Ann O'Brien's is set up to almost be like a club.
Ann O'Brien's is a great place for comedy. What's that? Square Barrels is not. It's not a separate room, but it's a separate portion of the room, you know.
Right. It's not fully.
It's not completely blocked off.
You could hear the people in the other room.
Yeah, you can, but like, what's another one? I guess the show you were talking about at Dragon, like they did one downstairs because
because they overbooked it or something. I don't know what happened. But, you know, but let me tell you something. Believe it or not, I actually made them laugh, which was hilarious on its own. I mean, none of them had teeth, but it was fine.
Well, I mean, you know,
it was fine. You know, I mean, I really look. I
homeless people need to laugh too, probably more than any of us.
I performed for the homeless in New York on the Lower East Side, and I was like, should I do my, you know, I want to have money bit? Like, how do I? But they laughed. I'm like, oh, this was funny. I have a joke where I'm like, you know, how many people here are feminists, and you know, people shout out, mostly men, which is funny. And I'm like,
they're trying to get laid. They're definitely trying to get laid.
I'm like, that guy, all right. So then I go, what do I say is after that, I'm like, my husband is starting to, you know, feminists are fucking up my shit. My husband's starting to think we're equal now. I'm so much more superior than he is. Like lately, he's been asking me to do this thing called work. Like I struggle saying it. I struggle saying it, and then I told that to the homeless people in New York, and one guy goes, "What's that?" And then so I'm like, "You right? Aren't we relatable here?" Like, you know. And someone asked me after the show once, you know, somebody actually asked me this. Don't you want to work and make your own money? And I said, no, I want my husband to work and make my own money.
I think you and my ex-wife would get along great. Except I didn't make a lot of money, and she didn't make any money, and she wouldn't do anything else. So,
well, you know, I never thought I'd enjoy work. I didn't work for 22 years. I could say not work, but I really was a mother of three, and that was hard.
Make
hard
a big
work.
Difference.
Yeah, that was a real job. I mean, it's the hardest job I ever had and ever will have. Mm-hmm. Now I'm actually enjoying the whole hustle. My husband's like in shock. He's like, "You like work? Let me get this straight." I'm like, "I'm not in an office. I'm doing what I love. I'm progressing, and I'm meeting people, you know, like, I'm not going to lie, I don't love all comics, but some comics are fun to be around.
Anytime you're meeting a bunch of people, some of them are going to suck.
Oh, yeah, well, most of them have fucked up childhoods and stuff, and they're nasty and crazy, but whatever.
And fucked up, like, adulthood.
Some of them have Asperger's, but whatever, you know, it's fine. You can't really talk to them, about anything. And then they'll tell everything you said, on stage. Oh, my God, I had that happen to me once. I once told somebody something in confidence, and fucking shouted out on stage. I was like, now what?
God.
Right, 12 minutes later.
Like, what do I, you can't even, it's not even like that grace period that the Oscars have. Like, this was live shit. And I was like, oh my God, thank God I didn't tell you, more bad shit.
Right.
That's one thing I definitely like. Any like local comic or mainland comic that's here visiting tells me, not on this podcast, does not go on this podcast.
Well,
Like that's.
Well, I'll tell you this. In my 20s, I don't know if you ever watched the show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, that's great.
I actually, my wife and I have been talking about starting that and haven't watched it yet.
Okay.
And I don't know what the hell.
All right, well, I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but it's basically a woman who gets into she's married with kids, and her husband, does these open mics. And she gets him these open mics by, making a brisket or something for the manager and gets him in on an earlier time slot as opposed to a higher time slot. She learns from watching the Bob Newhart show. She's like, oh my God, Bob Newhart is taking your material. He's like, honey, I'm taking his material. She's like, could you do that? And then he ends up leaving her for somebody else. And then,
Oh, shit.
What? I'm spoiling it?
No, I'm like,
No,
it's just
no.
fucked
This
up.
is,
Like,
by the way, I should say, this takes place in the 40s and they're Jewish.
I knew it was. It was like the
Yeah.
time of like the Lenny Bruce days
50s,
and things like that.
50s,
Yeah,
the 50s.
Yeah.
And she's like devastated because she's from like this small Jewish community, and now her husband's leaving her.
Yeah.
Right up, like, what are you talking about? Like, and then she gets drunk and goes to the comedy club on the subway in her nightgown, and she has a bottle of wine, and she's like just ranting on this. She's like, "Oh, is this where it all starts?" And she starts ranting, and now everyone's laughing, and she's hilarious. So she ends up going into comedy, ironically. So she becomes a comedian by default. So now, my story was my husband and I had broken up. We had like a thing that happened to us. We were separated, and like all of a sudden he was just like lost his shit. We went through a lot of stuff, and we were gonna just get divorced. So I'm watching this, and my eyes are streaming, mainly because I relate to that part, but also we're back together now. But I relate to that
Don't
part.
get your hopes up, Ray.
No, yeah, right. Unless you have more money. Anyway, he'd be happy with that. He's like, that's fine. He'd trade me for Bitcoin. He'll trade me for Bitcoin at this point. He'll trade me for Monopoly. But anyway, so what happened was, also in my 20s, I always wanted to do stand-up because I was already selling jewelry on Madison Avenue, and I was making people laugh. And the more I made people laugh, I noticed that they would buy more. I'm like, well, hey, this is funny. And then I was also a class comedian, not a class clown. I would always make people laugh, and it always made me feel good. And I used to visit sick people in the hospital and make them laugh. I'm like, where are you going? Where do you think you're going? You got a butler now. What do you got at home? You got nothing. Like I'd always make them feel better and make them laugh. Sometimes their teeth would fall out, whatever it was while they were laughing. But it's okay, and then choke on it. But that's fine. I still made them laugh.
They're in a hospital. We're a better place to choke on their own dick.
Yeah, we'll do CPR.
There's somebody that can save you here. Calm down. Not me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not giving you mouth to mouth.
So basically, I would love to make people laugh, but I squashed it because I grew up in a Jewish community in Brooklyn, and there was no way I could get married. I knew I would not be able to get married and also tell jokes on stage about what my relationship, about family, about our dating life. Never gonna happen. So I have to burp from this beer. It's gonna be hilarious if I do.
No,
Anyway.
just
let me
it
turn
go.
the mic up a little
No,
bit.
that was a silent one. It
Mic's
didn't
alright.
go.
Damn
But
it.
anyway,
Damn it, the mic's alright.
damn, it didn't go. But kombucha burps, those are great. Anyway,
Those have some girth to them.
oh yeah, that's like frogs heaven. Anyway, so which by the way, you have a lot of frogs in Connie. I've noticed dead ones. But anyway, I used to run here, so
Frogs and lizards. That's
yeah,
an abundance.
but flattened ones. Anyway, so yeah, so I've squashed the idea of having anything to do with comedy, even though everyone's like, do open mic, and they were late nights in New York. They were like 1 a.m. in front of 2 drunk people, and that was just like, is this how I'm gonna be living? That's not what I want, And in those days, the clubs had smoke in them, so it was like always filled with smoke and degenerates, and it was just like awful. It was like Hanks the other day. But anyway,
yeah. What time frame was this when you first
in
started
my
doing
20s?
comedy?
When I
what year?
first started in 2012, my husband said to me out of nowhere, he didn't even know I wanted to do comedy. He said, "You're really funny. You should probably take a comedy class and do stand-up comedy." And I go, what? I Googled it so quickly. I took a comedy class, and in turn of events, my teacher was actually on one of my shows recently.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh,
funny
shit.
that, yeah, right. And she's been on like the
Was
Tonight
that,
Show.
was
and
that
stuff
here
like that.
or was this still
New
in
York.
New York? This was still
Right,
in New
so
York.
I started comedy in New York, and I
Okay.
started doing some bringer shows. Then I won a contest. Then I started doing shows. Then my husband and I decided, because he was doing a 100-mile running race called the Hurt 100. It's actually run by people that live in Kaneohe. And we came here, you know, like that. We were introduced to the Big Island from the Ironman race a couple, you know, years before that. But this time we came, and I just absolutely fell in love with Kailua. Not so much Honolulu, like I'm like, get me out of here. But then when I went to North Shore, I'm like, okay, this is getting cool. And then I went to Kailua because someone told me about it. Mainly because she didn't want me to be around her boyfriend, I think. She's like, why don't you go to Kailua? I'm like, oh, what's
Go
Kailua?
over
She's
there.
like, yeah. She's like, that's a nice,
Like safe
that's
distance,
a nice
like a
band,
buffer
right?
zone,
I know. I
There
caught
be
on.
mountains between you and my
I
boyfriend.
caught on. I'm like, you know, first time I came here, I thought it was like Survivor. They were going to kick me off the island. But then my neighbor's kids were calling me auntie, and my husband was uncle. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cute. And then I realized they just want to be in our will. I think they were full of shit. And,
Oh, you live in Kailua. Oh.
yeah. And then, right, exactly, auntie and uncle my ass. But then I thought also they don't honk their horns here. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know the light turned green? That's on them.
I have to look up from my phone?
Yeah, exactly.
This is bullshit.
Yeah, just recently I told this woman, she was an acquaintance. She came to lunch with my other friend, and she's like, "Hi, what's it like being in the States?" I said,
In the States.
I'm going to tell you a secret. I never left. What do you mean? I follow you on Instagram. Don't you live in Hawaii? I said, yeah, I live in Hawaii. So she says, I said, but that's in the United States.
It's a state.
So she goes, yeah, but they speak Hawaiian. Like, do you speak Hawaiian? I'm like, it's so funny that you said that because they understand
That's what
the
you
word.
tell them, shoots, bro.
Right, they understand the word idiot. They do that.
Yeah, they do.
You're such an idiot. Anyway, so
Does
yeah,
your
that's
husband
something.
still run?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who did the 100-mile race to the Himalayas last year.
Wow.
Yeah, he flew to India, and he got to see like 3
What's
of
his
the.
name? He probably knows him.
Probably he's from Dallas,
small
Texas. His name is
community.
Nick. Yeah, he runs, but like he did the 100 miles through the Himalayas.
Wow.
Saw 3 of the 5 tallest mountains in the world. Like
Jesus.
he was unbelievable. 100 miles in like
Wow.
7 days or some shit. It was
Oh,
ridiculous.
yeah.
He's like, dude, I cried when I crossed the finish line. So I
I'm
was like,
sure.
fuck this, I'm done.
I mean, my husband's actually one of the fastest in U.S.
That's awesome.
Because he won 100-mile races within less than 24 hours. You know, insane. And if your friend wants to do the Heart 100,
I
they
need
have
to
to
get
be
him to come on it.
invited to be
I
in it.
mean, I don't know if he
I'm
wants to
sure
do it
he
again. But this was a little different. Like they do it in stages. Also, it's through the Himalayas. Like you're going up and down mountains all day, every day.
Yeah,
Like
really.
he said, it was the most
20,000
miserable
feet
thing at
already.
the
Oh
end.
yeah,
He
you
was like,
usually get the military guys out here do it.
Yeah.
My husband did it twice, won it twice. He did it 3 times. The first time they told him the wrong way, so he did 105 miles. He was the only one. He did 105 miles that day, but he ended up winning it. And in fact, somebody last year in the military that actually Patrick Tyrell knows, he was second place, and he killed himself.
oh
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, it's sad. So
See, I would probably do it.
I'm like, honey, I think you killed him because he wanted to be first. I didn't.
Right, yeah.
I'd probably kill myself if I ever thought I could run a 100-mile race.
miles,
Like,
yeah.
I know better. Like
I did it.
I need to end it now because
Yeah,
I'm
that's what I'm
obviously
saying.
delusional.
I did some century bicycle rides,
Really?
like in my early 20s.
But you're sitting on your ass.
Were
Anyway.
you
Exactly,
running?
that's what I'm saying. Well,
Were you
that's what-
running from something?
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying is like
Yeah.
doing on a bicycle was hard enough.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
even imagine trying to run
I
that.
think
It'd
that's
be
harder.
Fucking insane. You think
I
bicycle would be
actually
harder?
won a 100K race. My husband trained me. He said, you could be top 5. I'm like, really? And then I ended up winning it. It was in
Jesus.
Vermont in the mountains.
That's crazy.
62 miles.
I know that sounds difficult. The 100-mile race is probably more difficult, but like
Oh,
seat
yeah.
pounding on your ass all day. Like he spent
Yeah.
time in prison, so he's used to.
So is my
He
husband.
didn't know. He
But
didn't
not,
know.
no, okay. Well, I just let the cat out of bed. But
No,
no,
no.
it wasn't prison. It was camp. But
Yeah,
he,
well-
but he shaved his head with a mohawk, and I'm like, what is this Braveheart? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, Morty Rosenfeld is here, the accountant. Like, what are you worried about? This is a camp. There's a bunny rabbit in the yard. There's no
This
walls.
is white collar prison.
And he used to run in a loop, a 0.4 mile loop in the parking lot, just because he was an ultra runner for 3 hours at a time.
Right, just going.
Okay, I gotta get the in podcast selfie here.
And
Oh,
then,
look at it, all smug.
And all right, well, now I have to backstory and say why he was in jail. I'm still trying to write material and try to make this funny, but I mean, in of itself, it's funny. About 8 to 9 years ago, my husband is in the gemstone business, and he fired an Indian guy, software guy. And I'm saying India because it's poignant to the story. This guy was so disgruntled, he wrote an email to my husband saying, "This is I'm gonna make your life miserable for the rest of your life." And that's what he did. He actually extorted him and made like 1 million websites against the company with Yelp reviews. They were all fake. I mean, of course, in India you could pay someone 2 cents a day to write it. So
and he refused to answer all his customer service calls for the rest of his life.
Right. So he ended up, I don't know how this became a comedy podcast, but he ended up paying the guy about $50,000 to stop, and then he wanted more to stop. Of course, I didn't know about this. I mean, I didn't even have money to get a manicure at the time. No, I didn't have money to do anything, and I was like, I had no idea this was going on, but he didn't want to bother me with it. So let's fast forward 8 years later. I'm in Lanikai in my garage on the stationary bike, and 6 guys with guns come in. We're the FBI. Where's Michael Ornstein? I'm like, I don't know. You're the FBI. You tell me what kind of job is it? What kind of job you have? So I'm like,
he's not allowed back in here till 9 p.m. So
I'm like, am I being punked? Like, is this a joke? And then I'm like, what do you have him in for? They're like, we have him in for forgery. I'm like, what are you talking about? So now we go over this whole thing. P.S. I served him coffee and told him to come to Ann O'Brien's tonight. But,
trying to put asses in
right?
seats. I like
That's all that matters,
Yeah.
I got to bark everywhere I go. So they really liked it, though. They came.
By the way.
So did you hear that, Jose and Patrick? I told people. So listen to this. So what happened was, it wasn't really forgery. What happened was, my husband opened up this case and tried to get the FBI in India to find this Indian guy. Good luck finding an Indian in India. Then he ended up getting a lawyer that was so expensive, but all he was doing was removing it by copying and pasting. So he got court orders from a judge, and the judge's name was on it. And my husband fired the lawyer and gave it to one of his employees from Burma to do it. And this guy, it was already opened up a case, so this guy got the date wrong. And Google traced it back to the computer, so it's considered forgery. My husband went to jail for 9 months for this.
Holy
He
shit.
didn't even do the goddamn crime.
But that's crazy
His
because
employee did it. He took the fall.
Right.
And then he was on 5 months of house arrest, community service, 250 hours, and God knows how much money.
was the house arrest at least here in Hawaii?
No.
Oh, Jesus.
No,
That would have been much better.
It's in New York, but when he got out of jail, he actually, or I should say camp, he actually lost his mind and didn't want to be married anymore. Rented a house on his own, an apartment on his own. And then we started dating again, and then he got back to... He grew a beard that was so long, he looked like a rabbi. He was gray, too. I'm like, you're gray? Like, he's 7 years younger than I am. I did not ever see him with gray hair. He had jet black hair and a gray beard. Now, he shaved his head. If I show you pictures right now, I mean, you can't even see it online, but, I mean, you could see it on atthefruitarian.com. Oh, and he only ate fruit for 2 hours a day, so he got ripped.
Oh.
If you want to take a look at him on Instagram, this became an advertisement.
You're turning Ray on. Stop it, okay? He's like, picture this ripped dude. Yeah.
You want to see pictures?
Oh, shit. You gotta stop the video on your phone
It's
now. You gotta
fine.
show Ray some ripped man pictures.